Good morning. Thank you, my honorable colleague. And to our Olympic athletes, the team may be small, but you are full of brilliance and passion, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are with you. The United National Congress understands that your journey has been made that much harder to represent our beloved nation because of the lack of resources that the PNM has starved you of. We understand that. And have no fear, help is on the way. But still, go out there, Olympics starting next week, and represent your country to the best of your ability. You have our full support, love, and respect. Good morning, UNC family. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Let me start off with condolences. Condolences to those 4 families who've lost people to dengue because mosquito bite us. Condolences to those people who've lost loved ones this year because you went to the river or to the beach and there were no lifeguards because the PNM don't want to pay lifeguards and they're understaffed. Condolences to all of those who have lost lives on the roads because the PNM leaves our roads in a dilapidated state, unprotected, unlit, from Maruga straight up to Matlot, across the Caranach. Condolences to all those families who lost loved ones by the gun, by illegal ammunition, illegal firearms from an open border, left open by the PNM. Condolences to each and every one, all the families, some who have lost loved ones because of the lack of oncology drugs, those who have lost loved ones just from pure negligence. This is why politics is important. And this morning, we are here to discuss, first and foremost, the Minister of Death, Terence Dialsing. We can see that 4 deaths from dengue, from a mosquito. Understand, the science has been proven. This is totally controllable. This is totally preventable. The information is there. You need to educate a population, keep resources in the hands of the government officials and the agencies that are responsible for monitoring and eventually dealing with any potential risk or danger of mosquito infection. The Minister of Health, who is totally unqualified, incompetent, uneducated, and not suited for purpose, is the one telling you that 4 dead people of dengue, which could have been prevented, is not a public health emergency. We in the United National Congress beg to differ, and we have doctors of decades of specialist intelligence and qualification who would tell you that 1 life lost to dengue is a public health emergency, far less for 4, simply because it is preventable, and it is the lack of will, the lack of investment, the lack of putting resources by the PNM, which we will discuss later why they do that. Because any dollar spent on saving your lives, any dollar spent on direct charges is a dollar less for the PNM to steal. So I take you to this. I don't normally do this because these newspapers are responsible for the PNM being in charge because they don't print the truth. They're starting to print the truth now because we are at a desperate level. Our country is crying out. At every level, we are at a position of pain and suffering. So even these PNM newspapers are forced to print the truth. As dengue cases rise, says the Guardian, Sunday, July 21st, page 6. As dengue cases rise, Insect Vector Control Division struggles. Now, why would they be struggling? There's a government, a PNM government in place. There's a cabinet. There's an allocation of resources. There's a budget. So there's only one answer, that the PNM does not think your health and your safety is a priority and therefore has not directed resources to insect vector. The Insect Vector Control Division, IVCD, which is responsible for protecting citizens from vector-borne diseases, lacks equipment, manpower, and vehicles to eradicate infestation of mosquitoes in areas spanning from Caroni to far-flung Cedros. One of the IVCD's functions is to monitor and control insects and organism vectors through detection and surveillance activities to prevent outbreaks of diseases. Yet there's an outbreak of a preventable disease because the PNM cannot monitor, cannot strategize, cannot plan, cannot implement to save you from mosquito, far less from criminal, gun-wielding bandits with no FULs, with illegal ammunition and illegal weapons. This is our lot in life because some of us determine and decide to vote for the corrupt PNM. Understand this. The PNM's view of discretionary spending is that they will spend money, as Senator Nakit said, on vacuous projects that they could corruptly whisk away your money to financiers and contractors who they meet with. They knock glass, eat shrimps, and drink scotch. That is PNM. Because money spent on direct charges, for example, to protect you, for wages, for cars, for maintenance, for chemicals, for insect vector, that is money that they cannot steal because that has a direct cost and a direct charge and a direct benefit. The PNM is so directly corrupt that they prefer to steal money and let you suffer, then tell you that there is a dunce of a minister of health who says you are dying, but it's not a public health emergency. They said that same thing for COVID-19 when the UNC asked to debate a public health emergency from January 2020 throughout. Dr. Lakram Bodo, motion after motion in the Senate and the Parliament, knocked down by the blue-haired lady, the Speaker, and the now PNM President, former President of the Senate, the PNM Kangaloo, who refused to debate, and over 5,000 citizens lost their lives. The death rate at the ICU was 94%, one of the worst in the world. People were dying at home in tents, no oxygen, no prevention, nothing. Every variant known to man walked across from South America across that 7-mile gap, Gulf of Paria, into Trinidad and Tobago. Yet the PNM told you and shouted out that they're #1 in the world. They are the worst. They're the most incompetent. Dengue is something that should never come back. If we leave the PNM there, in next 10 months, we might be fighting the bubonic plague. They are so backward. They are so corrupt. They are so inept. They are so dotish. It is not funny. This is not funny. Dengue, the mosquito, a mosquito bites somebody gets infected with dengue, the mosquito fly around and bites somebody else. There are over 335 cases just in this area reported. And everybody knows in Trinidad and Tobago, if that's reported, you have to multiply by 10. So there are over 3,500 cases just in this small area and probably more deaths. 21 babies died in a NICU because they couldn't clean. They couldn't clean. They couldn't sanitize. They didn't want to pay money to keep the NICU clean for little babies. Why? Because that's direct charges. And PNM likes discretionary spending. You know what discretionary spending mean? Them could thief. PNM loves to inflate discretionary spending. They attack Kamla Prasad Bisesa for wage negotiations. You heard Rowley say he had a bill to pay of $5 billion because Kamla Prasad Bisesa had done negotiations with labor unions, 143 negotiations. You know why that hurt Rowley? You know why that burned him? Because that money is direct charges. His cabinet cannot decide what to do with it or who to give it to or which friend or which financier. That has to go to you because Kamla Prasad Bisesa believes your money is for you. PNM is anti-direct charges. They are pro-discretionary charges, discretionary spend, because them want to spend your money and corruptly whisk it away. You have to ask yourselves, facts are terrible things for the PNM, you know. In 5 years and 3 months, Kamla Prasad Bisesa spent $205 billion. There was gate of $726 million. 100,000 students got laptops. 106 schools built. Aquatic center, cycling velodrome, across the board, national tennis center, 89 grounds redone. There were police stations and fire stations done to protect you. Wage bill increased. Goods and services provided. Roads were smooth and safer. Across the board, Trinidad and Tobago was developing, diversifying, creating revenue streams. Kamla Persad-Bissessar spent $205 billion in 5 years and 3 months. And your lives were better. The fuel subsidy was there. They tried to tell her to take it from you, and she said, no, that's for the people, by the people, of the people, and she left it there for you, the people. Keith Rowley, that miscreant, that Obia man from Lekoto who Tobago has spit out, had spent in his first 5 years and 3 months $15 billion more than Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Yet you had no oncology drugs. You could not get Panadol in the hospital. You had no bed. Your roads were dilapidated, mashing up, and you're busting tire everywhere you go. Not a school built, not a sports stadium maintained, not a grounds cut. The total collapse took away your fuel subsidy from you, not a wage negotiation, not an expenditure on you, flooding throughout. And Keith Rowley spent more money. So why? Why is Keith Rowley's performance so poor, so terrible? Why is Keith Rowley such a failure to the people when he spent more than Kamla Persad-Bissessar in 5 years and 3 months? And in 9 years, Keith Rowley has spent over $500 trillion. All you try to write it down now. Try and write down what is a trillion. Yet nothing works in this country. People are suffering. No jobs. The energy sector decimated. Increased taxes. They come in to tax you more. Why is that? What is it about Keith Rowley and his PNM that is so bad that Kamla spent less but did more? There's one answer, and one answer only. Keith Rowley's PNM is corrupt. Keith Rowley's PNM is corrupt from the top to the bottom. Understand what I am telling you. Forget the media and the PNM media that gives you stories and gives you claims about corruption of others. But let Rowley do what he wants. If you understand what corporate governance is, let's start from the top. Procurement legislation. What is procurement legislation? Big word. That is to protect your money from thieves. Kamla Persad-Bissessar went in her 5 years, got special procurement legislation passed with special majority, putting lock and key on your money. Keith Rowley and his government for 5 years left it languishing, did not proclaim it, then decided, this thing, too strong, too much protection over the people money. We need to unlock the money. Why? Why would you unlock money? Not for somebody to thief. They went into parliament and watered down the legislation, taking and getting support of an independent senator who I have to listen to now talk about let's fight corruption. We should have fought corruption with your one vote to stop the PNM from watering down procurement legislation. What did Rowley and them do? Kamla had protection over your assets, disposal of assets. The government could not dispose of assets without proper procurement. Lawyers and legal fees. Kamla said proper procurement. Office of the Procurement Regulator could monitor it so that money can't just be spent wildly. PNM take out that. Medical supplies, PNM take out that. And now what is taking place in front of your face? The most corrupt boldface act in history. Your refinery that was closed for only one reason and one reason only, that Keith Rowley closed it. Keith Rowley decided to close it. There was no advice. The board, Winfred Espinay, the PNM board, did not say shut down Petrotrin. He's on the oath, on record in the Labour Court, saying he never told Rowley and the cabinet to shut it down. the Lashley report, the McKinsey report, the Solomon report, $64 million of reports did not say shut down Petrotrin. Kamla Prasad Bisesa brings out in a press conference the now infamous fake oil scandal. And then all of a sudden, Petrotrin is shut down. Evidence cannot be gathered. Rowley puts his attorney, who knows nothing about oil, in charge of heritage. They even changed the security, so police can't get statement from who was on the post, who signed the book, who signed the diary, where the candidate, former PNM candidate for Siparia, where Dioki Singh went, when he went, how long the pump turned on for, how much oil is possible. Investigation thwarted by a prime minister who said that bareback man who is on video across your social media cussing and carrying on every 1.5 seconds, that is Rowley's friend, that is Rowley's brethren, that is Rowley's compadre. The refinery shut down. Now Rowley miraculously, as he removed disposal of assets from under the watchful eyes of the procurement regulator, decides he wants to sell your refinery. It belongs to you. Now understand this. Let us pretend Jindal was not on corruption charges first. A prime minister who is in charge of the final decision on who should get what and what process and what sale and what price must never meet with those who would like to purchase assets. It simply is not on. It's a red flag. It's an opportunity for corruption. Developed countries do not have that. We have competitive tender to keep the decision makers far, far away from those who would like to make money from purchasing assets. Rowley stands in your face, takes a picture with a businessman who wants to purchase a refinery. That in itself is wrong. That's a breach of financial rules. That's a breach of corporate governance. That is corrupt. You do not do that. And secondly, what makes it worse? It's while a tender process is going on. So there was an invitation for request for proposals and tender actually going on. And Rowley showing preference, speaking about a preferred bidder, talking about this man and smiling and saying he's interested, and then say, what, all you vex for? All you don't want investment? Yes, we want investment. But our constitution states that the resources of the nation must be made available in equity throughout for all. So who would like to give value for money? Let the competition begin. It does not say, let the prime minister meet with a man and shake his hand, eat shrimps and drink scotch, and maybe deal could cut at any time because no permanent secretary, no record, no information for the public. That is corrupt. But what makes it even worse is that Jindal is on corruption charges. And it seems that everyone Rowley does business with is on some sort of corruption charge. Whether it's Maduro and Delcy and Wilmer Ruperti and Paria Fuel and sanction busting and a Manolate ship coming down into Pointe-a-Pierre without documentation that Wademark had to ask for, and documents miraculously manifested themselves in 54 days after the ship gone. And Stuart Young said there was a sanction clause, and the only person who read it was Asha Javid upside down. And that's why the media is corrupt. Because how could she read where's the sanction clause, how they put in a clause after the so-called deal had been consummated? All of that surrounds Venezuela. All of that surrounds the refinery. And now we see Jindal. And then Rowley tells lies and says that he went to India to meet with Ambani to give him a cricket grounds and take away land from Pan. But you also met Jindal. But Kamla Prasad Bisesa showed you the truth. Jindal had been here a year and a month before, meeting with Stuart Young in the Ministry of Energy. Jindal was no secret. Jindal was with Rowley and his #1 sidekick, Stuart Young. And therefore, for Rowley to say he did not know that Jindal was on corruption charges when those corruption charges brought down the Manmohan Singh government in India, either Rowley is a pathological liar, but no either. We know that. Just check Emailgate. But this corrupt action with your assets must stop. Rowley does it in your face. He breaks the law in your face, talks about it, And then all of you stay silent because Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, we become a land of cowards because the economy is shattered, because there are no revenue streams where you big business could earn a living properly with proper management, proper marketing, proper product and research and development. You depend on the government for contracts. The government now in Trinidad and Tobago's dying, bankrupt economy spends 78% of the revenue. And that is why we are cowards. Because you know it is wrong. You know Rowley is evil. You know what he's doing is corrupt. And you allow it to continue. Because you want to get your little morsel. And you say your prayers and you ask for forgiveness while you get your contract. But you can't get forgiveness because the results of allowing Rowley's corruption to exist, of Noel Garcia, one man who's known Rowley for 45 years, who was in the Las Alturas Commission of Inquiry with Rowley. He and Rowley have had a past that can only be described as checkered. He is now in charge of your money. Why is that? Under Kamla Prasad Bisesa, there was one human being for one chairmanship of one board. That is corporate governance. What is corporate governance? It's putting eyes, ears, brains, spirit, character, and ethics in the midst of a proposal or an attempt to spend taxpayers' money. Therefore, there'll be a greater opportunity for whistleblowers. Because if someone has a nefarious mind, the next person in line may be a person of good character, like the Auditor General, who is now under fierce attack from the PNM because she is honest, ethical, and doing her job. $3.4 billion unaccounted for in revenue, $1 billion of expenditure unaccounted for, and yet the media lets that float by. They move on to the next story. Corporate governance means that your money is protected. Rowley has shattered the Kamla Prasad Bisesa corporate governance, finance rules, tender procedures by putting one man, Noel Garcia, to build everything. Sports stadium, airport, health facility, hospital, fire station, police station, Prime Minister residence in Tobago, President's house, Red House, and any project in between, car park, and on top of that, every house to be constructed is one man and one man alone. I ask you all, is there more possibility for corruption, theft, and stealing if one human being is in charge of all the money than if there are thousands of eyes, ears, hearts, ethics, morals to check and balance the processes? So Keith Rowley is fast and out of place to ever suggest that anyone is corrupt. Keith Rowley is the bastion of corruption. All of his people who are in charge of your money live in an Inez Gate area that was constructed by a man who's now on criminal charges. The Speaker of the House, Bridget Anisette George, and her husband, Newman George, who is on 7 boards as chairman, Inez Gate Rowley neighbor. The Central Bank Governor, Alvin Hilaire, Inez Gate, Warner Construction, there. Ingrid Lashley on 9 boards, a woman who, when Kamla Prasad Bisesa wanted to get a 2% loan from Home Mortgage Bank and TTMA and so on for you to buy first-time houses, refused to implement. And Vasant Bharat didn't have the testicular fortitude or the strength to cause her to implement that 2%. As Kamla was cheated out of the office that she deserved, up comes Ingrid Lashley, the PNM savior, on 9 boards. She's in charge of your investments, and over $500 million you have lost. And they say, mea culpa, but you have lost your money. What you love about PNM so that you would pay your hard-earned money to have Rowley instead of Kamla. When Kamla is Prime Minister, a middle-class family of 4 with 2 children would get up to $80,000 to $95,000 of state benefits depending on the education gate, grants, they're differently able, the resources, the gas subsidy, and so on. It means that you, middle-class families, are paying $90,000 100,000 TT dollars out of your pocket to keep Rowley as Prime Minister rather than Kamala. Does that make sense? Is there some form of obeah working on the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Why is there blood all over? They come to bring a foreigner from Zimbabwe to take over WhatsApp, poor fella. He dead. What is that? Is that a Lekoto Jambi? But when you see that Warner Construction was now charged, the friend of Rowley, another friend, charged for illegally quarrying on land. Since December 2023 and May 2nd, 2024, charges, police, EMA, no license. And then Rowley gets a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy with his small pin, Stuart Young, to then, after charges have been laid, grant a license to the said Warner. Doesn't that strike you as strange? How is that possible? What is that saying? And is that fair and balanced and granting the same opportunities to you, the citizens? How many people were waiting for licenses to quarry? How many people were lined up? How long have they been lined up? Where did the state land come from? How did Warner get it? Is that the process that is used now? That is my friend, he gets what he wants. That's where Trinidad and Tobago reach, and Rowley had the audacity to say that people are corrupt. And to you, Madam Permanent Secretary, or whoever is the Permanent Secretary, God bless you, you know, because you are the one who should be doing your duty. You are the one who has the responsibility. It is your signature on that license that came after charge. So when the procurement regulator takes place, when the Integrity Commission comes knocking, it is you who will be in risk of charges, criminal charges, for benefiting under Section 27(1) of the Integrity in Public Life Act, giving benefit to any person or group. So, Permanent Secretary, you all go ahead. Take basket from the PNM. Let them tell you and instruct you, because you hope to get a High Commissioner job like Vishnu Dan Paul. Or you hope to be a Permanent Secretary like Alison Due Diligence Lewis, who made the People's Partnership government dot every I and cross every T. And then when the PNM stole the election in 2015, jump out from being a Permanent Secretary onto the PNM board as chairman of the port, and then facilitated Bridgman's corruption. Rowley called it crooked money, but Rowley is the one who approved the Charter Party agreement. Anywhere Rowley moves, he normalizes corruption. Rowley went to Australia with Stuart Smallpin Young, toured Austral and Incat, and then purchased 2 ferries from the very same Austral and Incat, telling them to give their bids to Stuart Young and his ministerial committee. They then pretended to go through a tender process. Stuart Young said on record of a press conference that when they saw that Incat's bid was 15 million US less than Austral, that Austral's bid was higher than Incat, they contacted somebody from the committee, contacted Austral and told them to reduce their bid, and they handed out like dinner mint 1-1. In any other developed country, sharing privileged information on price and bidding in a competitive tender is called bid rigging and is illegal. Trinidad and Tobago, Rowley and his government did that in your face, and you accept it. And we jump on the APT James and the Buku Reef and say, let's go on to the next corrupt scheme. Rowley is the most corrupt human being on God's green earth, and his government has proven so to be. Rowley went into the parliament to read out emails that he spent his first 11 minutes telling you that he knew it was wrong, he knew it was fake, and that he would have the opportunity so to do, no matter how grievous it was, no matter what the damage was. That is Rowley. You have to ask yourself, if those emails contained information about murder of a journalist, bugging the DPP office and so on, why did Keith Christopher Rowley not go to the police? Why? He went by the president, George Maxwell Richards, he didn't take him on. He went by the head of the Integrity Commission up in Glencoe, eat scones and drink tea. Then he came to the parliament with privilege to read out that nonsense that vaulted him into the office of Prime Minister, understand the character of the individual, why he didn't go to the police. You want to know why? There is a criminal charge called wasting police time. And when you know, and when you read Rowley's first 11 minutes on his Hansard, he knew that what he had was not true. He knew that it was false. He knew that they were not even emails. 29 of the 31 things did not even have enough characters to be emailed. He did not go to the police because he knew he would be charged criminally for wasting police time. That is the Prime Minister you have put in charge of your money. That is the Prime Minister who's coming to tax you. That is the Prime Minister you have allowed to go now on his 10th budget to tax you and to increase discretionary spend. And by discretionary spend, he means Noel Garcia could build in Skinner Park 131 million with some flimsy plastic seat that when you sit down on it, you slip, you could fall down. You turn a football field into a sweating pitch. Build 2 car park for 140 million that nobody parking in. Build a Ministry of Health building that value at 165 million, but you have to pay 400 million. Build a red house for 442 million that's supposed to have brass railing. When you hold on to it, you could fall down the step. Have to take care of Senator John when she in she fancy shoes walking down the step, because if she only hold that cheap railing in the red house, she fall down and we can't afford her to fall down. Everything the PNM does is corrupt. Discretionary spending is spending with corruption. There is no procurement. Rowley finally, as I wrap up, Rowley said that he claimed that if he decided and his government authorized and decided which law firm to pay money to investigate the UNC, that he would have committed a criminal offense. Yes, Rowley, you talking it out, don't make it not so. Because the questions will have to be answered, just like how you went by the president in August 2021, and you caused her to cause Bliss Prasad to misbehave in public office. That will be investigated. Your time is up, Rowley. Across the board, your decisions will remain there. All of you contractors who continue, I see glass going up in Balizé House. Balizé House, Rowley said when he came to be leader, was negative $4 million. The glass going up in Balizé House, $120 to $150 million. Where that money come from? Raffle ticket? 3% of councillors' salaries? To all of you contractors who I saw with my own eyes, there will be an inquiry. Deputy Political Leader Jolene John, Rudal Munilal have promised that Balizé House, that bastion of corruption, that monolith will be turned into a home for the homeless, for medical care, for food, for soup kitchen, to take care of the people, because it was built with the people's money. To you citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, I could go on, but I guess you understand now that this government is failing, that dengue is killing you, that crime is killing you, that we have an extra 1,000 ways to die because of the incompetence of the PNM, but Rowley has spent more money than Kamala Prasad, yet nothing works, yet your salaries do not improve. Every labor person, every teacher, every worker, every nurse, every policeman, every army man, every coast guard, every laborer should vote Kamala, because Kamala's spend is on you. Unlike Rowley's discretionary spend, which is for him, his cohorts, his financiers, his friends, and his interlocking directorships. Corruption abounds when corporate governance is eliminated. Kamala is corporate governance. Kamala is procurement. Rowley is friends, family, multiple boards for one individual, including the head of the Integrity Commission, who is now the 25-year neighbor of Bridget Anisette George and Newman George. Is that a fair appointment? Does that fill you with confidence? Rowley has questions to answer about his Integrity in Public Life Act form. His Form B, that he did not declare the Inez Gate property. He did not declare the $500,000 benefit that he got from a man now on criminal charges. So to you, Trinidad and Tobago, God bless you. Be safe. We on our own. Lock up your house. Turn on your cameras. Make sure you have your friends on speed dial. Take care of yourself, because Rowley has infiltrated the police. Rowley has infiltrated every independent institution, and we are suffering. Hold strain. An election is coming, and when that election comes, vote resoundingly for UNC. Riot with your voting finger. Give Rowley the finger. God bless. Thank you. We'll take questions. Senator Naked is here also.
Okay, I have some questions for Senator Naked. You speak about what the UNC would do to eradicate crime. Can you give us more details on how the UNC's plans can stop the bloodshed that we are seeing on a weekly basis?
Well, you have short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures in which you eradicate crime. The first one I alluded to before is putting money, some capital in the hands of people in those communities that they can have instant redress. They can feed their families. That's the first thing. That they can send their kids to school. They don't have to choose between sending their kids to school and possibly they going to work. Between buying uniforms or bags for their school and to have their own transportation to go to work. So you do that immediately, and that comes in the forms of grants. And that's what Kamala Prasad did with the milk grant. She did with the disability grant. All of those things that the PNM cut. So you immediately put money in the hands. But we have a PNM that when you put money in the hands of especially African people, when you do that, they make a whole lot of noise because they don't see, you know, we have all these African communities who continue to believe in the PNM, but the PNM has never believed in them. And I'd like to say this, you know, our deputy political leader, she always talks about, Jolene Jones, she always talks about you must have an advocate in the room. And I'm asking these African communities, these poor and disadvantaged communities, who is your advocate? It is certainly not the PNM. There, you must have an advocate in the room for you. And we intend to be that advocate. So we're going to have, of course, an increase in social programs. I think Senator Roberts alluded to that. The PNM speaks about it, but they never do anything about it. We're going to have an increase in our sport programs, which went from over 300 million to close to 13 million, which is nothing when it comes to sports. So we're going to must have an increase in those programs and benefits that target those communities that are now under siege.
Okay, thank you. And for Senator Roberts, following up on your presentation, does the procurement regulator have oversight of the sale of Petrotrin, of the Petrotrin refinery to Naveen Jindal? And if so, how will this affect the negotiation?
Well, by my recollection, my understanding, and from the debate when the PNM brought to the Parliament a bill to water down and to relax the conditions of the Kamala Prasad-Bissessar legislation on procurement, disposal of assets, which this is, Petrotrin refinery is a state asset, does not now fall under the purview of the Office of the Procurement Regulator. That and legal fees and medical supplies. Rowley and the PNM extricated that from under the protective eyes of the legislation. And we, the people, the UNC was there fighting. All 6 senators spoke 40 minutes each, saying this is wrong. We cannot allow and legitimize stealing. We cannot cut track for Guti to run. Why are they weakening legislation when we are trying to fight corruption? 8 out of 9 independent senators agreed with the United National Congress. But there was one independent senator who thought, oh, that's okay. They're coming to water down legislation to make it possible for people with nefarious ideals and concepts to steal. Well, I will vote for that. So they got 1 vote. So to answer your question, Rowley could do what he wants because he has removed disposal of assets. They're disposing of our assets all around. And it does not fall under that legislation. Kamla Prasad Bisesa had it and the PNM removed it. Furthermore, I like your question, how the reporter placed it. You see, you're speaking about Jindal winning. What are we talking about? There was a competitive tender advertised internationally for any interested companies or parties to bid on a sale of an asset belonging to the people. From our reports, we are hearing that there are 9 bidders. How come Rowley meet with one? That should disqualify Jindal. The mere fact that he met with Rowley is corrupt. It is wrong. During a process, no tender process. Read a book, anybody. Don't take my word for it. Jindal should be disqualified simply because he has been shown preference over and above other bidders during a bidding process. It is so simple. But under PNM, under this media, we allow Rowley, the most disgusting, disrespectful, dishonest human being, to just make fools of us. You should not meet with anybody who is actively involved in a bid. Let the competition be free and fair and free from fair. So unfortunately, until election time, and I don't know, we have lawyers on our side, we will have to see what we can undo to get back money for this population. One must also remember that Rowley on our platform recently said, oh, corruption, the UNC, EMBD, it's before a civil case which was brought by Rowley, brought by the PNM. That's a civil case, and it will be dealt with in the courts. But since Rowley is saying that these civil matters now all of a sudden reach and are uplifted to the level of criminal charges, of which his friends and them, they're full of that criminal charge. But Rowley is now trying to elevate a civil matter to the criminal benchmark. Well, Rowley, Senator Roberts, have a question for you. If that is such a high level and shows corruption, how come you took Malcolm Jones out of civil court? How come you took Ken Julian out of civil court for Bamboo Networks? Wasn't Malcolm Jones the lawyer Stuart Young? Rowley, listen, there are so many questions about this individual. We are better as a country than Rowley. Rowley's the worst of the worst. It's like you have a football team and you pick the slowest, fattest, no-skill, uncoordinated man and put him in the center midfield. That's what we have done. We put Rowley, the most incompetent, dishonest, pathological, unsympathetic, unempathetic individual full of hatred and greed in charge of our country. And then we wonder why mosquito biting me and we dying.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
On behalf of Senator Naked and the UNC team here at headquarters, on behalf of our political leader, the Member of Parliament for Siparia, and the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, we thank you all for paying attention. We give you this information, these facts for you to share, to discuss, to talk. We are all one country. We all bleed the same, and we are all suffering because of PNM incompetence. Unite, vote UNC whenever any election is called. God bless. Enjoy your Sunday. Be safe.